was getting asked the same question just from peers over and over. And that question was, Kaitlin, how are you always so happy? And my answer was always the same. It's not that I'm quote unquote so happy, but it is that I'm very intentional about, creating happiness in my life.
Hello, Empower Nation. This is Empower Her Money podcast. I am your host, Angela Duncan. I am super excited for today. My guest, Katie Cuevas. She is the founder of Think Happy, which I absolutely love the title, and I welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, kind of where you started and how you got to today.
Yeah. So, I guess a little bit just about who I am personally. I live in Houston, Texas with my husband. We have a 2.5-year-old daughter named Eleanor. And at the time of this recording, we have an almost 11-month-old son named James. He's growing up so fast. And of course, our golden doodle, Guppy, who is the glue that holds our whole family together. So that's a little bit about me personally. And so I guess a little bit about Think Happy and what I'm doing over there. So Think Happy started actually with a book that was published in March of 2022, not 2022, March of 2020. And this book came to be because I realized I was getting asked the same question just from peers over and over. And that question was, Kaitlin, how are you always so happy? And my answer was always the same. It's not that I'm quote unquote so happy, but it is that I'm very intentional about, creating happiness in my life. So the follow-up question was always, well, how do you do that? And so that is where the book Think Happy came from. It breaks down 5 pillars of happiness. And since then, it has turned into also a podcast and a coaching business that focuses primarily on time and task management and building sustainable habits and routines.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of information, but good background on Think Happy. I'm a big believer in positive attitude. It's not just something that you think about, but also something that you have to practice every day. So we're both moms, both have a crazy busy life, I'm sure. So let's touch on how do you create like a simple routine? What are some tasks or some action items you can help us so that we can better manage our days?
Yes, I love this question and I could talk about it for hours. So I'm going to hit you guys with 2 high points. They're 2 of my favorites. The first one is an activity that I do frequently with my own audience. It's essentially uncovering time that you are not using productively in your day. Okay. And so once we have that time identified, we get to reallocate it to different areas of our life where it serves us better. So I have a free guide. I will give Angela the link to it that walks you through these 3 steps that I'm going to hit really high level for you guys right now. So that first step is to identify your distractions. Okay. So what are the things that are pulling you away from productivity? And with this step, I really challenge people to think outside of the box, right? So yes, of course, there's distractions like scrolling on our phones, the obvious ones, but maybe what are some of those tricky or sneaky distractions that are getting in your way? The second step here is to do a self audit. And you guys are numbers people, I have a feeling. But this is not anything crazy fancy. To do this self audit, you just grab a sheet of paper or the download if you choose to grab that. And you write down on one side of the paper all of those distractions that you identified. Then next to each of those, you estimate about how much time per week you spend on each of those distractions, right? So let's say, for example, I have 3 primary distractions. There's probably going to be a lot more than that. Spoiler alert. But let's say those distractions are scrolling Pinterest, watching reruns of The Office, and online shopping. Okay. For my audit, I would estimate about how much time per week I spend on each of those things. So let's say I think per week I spend about 10 hours scrolling Pinterest. That would be a little bit more than 1 hour a day. Maybe I spend 15 hours watching The Office. That would be about 3 episodes, 5 times a week. And then maybe I spend about 5 hours online shopping each week. So that's an example of what a self-audit could look like. Now, for this third step here, the most simple but eye-opening part of this, it is to add up all of that time from your audit, okay? So this number will give you an idea of how much time you have available to be regained each week. So with that example I gave with Pinterest, The Office, and online shopping, if you add up that 10, 15, and 5 hours, that's 30 hours a week that you have available to be regained. So that's my first tip. Do you have any thoughts or anything, any questions about that before I go into the follow-up tip, Angela?
Yeah, just one thing that I did recently is, on your cell phone, you can go in and see how much time you are spending on your phone. And
Mm-hmm.
we were doing this challenge, and I was like, oh, I get on my phone for email and text messages, but I'm pretty good with other stuff. I was so surprised that the amount of time it said I actually spent on my phone. I think I averaged 4 hours a day, and it wasn't on productivity type of stuff like I thought I was. So I had to make a mental note of that. And then I started to pick up my phone, and then I was like, oh, I'm scrolling again, got to put it down. It's not productive for me. But I didn't realize it until I did that activity too. So I love what you're saying about like be intentional, write it down. And once you focus on it, you're going to then know this is not it's not something I should be doing. Let's redirect that to something else. So yeah, so awesome points right there. Keep going.
I completely agree. And I think the key that you just said is all about just becoming intentional, right? Bringing awareness to this. Um, so yeah, thank you for that example. I also will do that activity occasionally, just kind of like check in on myself. How much am I really using my phone for productive things versus just kind of time waster things? And it's always eye-opening. I feel like my jaw always hits the floor.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so my follow-up tip is a couple of actual productivity strategies that we can use, right? So I like following up this first tip of regaining some time with this, hands-on ways you can be using this time you now regained, how you can be using it to best serve you. So I have loads of strategies that I could share, but I picked my top 3 that I personally use in my day-to-day life to share with you guys today. So the first one is to start with a daily to-do list, but the main part of this one is to make your to-do list before you're actually ready to start tackling it. So my thinking behind this is when we sit down, we're ready to start tackling our to-do list. That's our A game frame of mind, right? We don't need that A game to make the to-do list. Let's already have the to-do list so that when we sit down to start checking things off of it, we're using our A game for actually checking things off the to-do list. Now, the second strategy that I use is to highlight or star your top 1, 2, or 3 highest priorities for the day. Okay. And this does not have to necessarily be the first 3 things that you do. But if you're unable to get anything else done on your list in one day, what would be 3 things that you would be pleased with accomplishing?
Hmm.
And then my third one is to work in batches of 3, 4, or 5 tasks at a time. This is not task batching, it's just working in batches. So I keep a pencil by all of my to-do lists so that I can actually do this. I'll number items 1 through 3 or 1 through 5 that tells me the order I want to do things. Once I finish that batch, it's a great natural time, maybe if you're using a reward system, to get up, take a break, stretch your legs, get a fresh cup of coffee, something like that, and then get back. I erase those first 3 or 5, and then I renumber. So those are my two suggestions for you guys: identifying time you don't use productively, and then some productivity tips.
Awesome, awesome. Now, when you're making that to-do list, would you recommend maybe putting something easy in there, like make your bed or, just a task that you're going to accomplish for the day so you can feel like I got something done to create some momentum?
I think that strategies like that are work for some people and don't work for others. So if that is something that drives you and, kickstarts your day, gets the ball rolling, 100% yes. I personally am someone who likes seeing checks on my to-do lists. So I'm one of those weirdos that if I do something that's not on my to-do list, sometimes I'll write it on my to-do list so I can check it off. That drives me. But it doesn't for everyone. So not a cookie cutter answer, but if it would help you, yes, absolutely do it.
Good, good. You just validated me because I occasionally will do that too. Like, oh, I should have had that on my to-do list and I did it,
Uh-huh.
I accomplished it. So I'm going to put it there anyways.
Yep. Yep.
Love that. Love that. Those are some great tips and action items that someone could take away and do today. And, just a little tweak in their routine could go like make just huge impact for them. So I love that. I have a fun question for you. If you could have a super talent or superpower, what would it be and why do you choose that?
Okay. You're going to laugh at me. I think I would choose, I can't even say it with a straight face, but I'm dead serious. I think I would choose having multiple stomachs like a cow. And so I'm the person who, when I finish eating a meal that I just so loved, I want to start it over again. And I mean, my family loves food. When we go on vacation, we plan trips around food. We're cooking all the time, and I just love sitting around the dinner table and community and fellowship and conversation. And I just wish that I had multiple stomachs.
I will say that that's a first, that I get the analogy behind it. So, I'm terrible at cooking, but I love to eat. So I could see how, the rewind of that meal and kind of re-experiencing that would be an awesome thing to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely unique in that nature. So awesome, awesome. You had mentioned earlier about the freebie. Is there somewhere that, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, can they reach out to you in case, they're listening to this and driving and they want to grab that freebie? Tell us, where can they reach you?
Yes. So the best place is just going to be on Instagram. You can find me at thinkhappy_co. That's just CO. And that's where you can find me most places online. Think Happy Co. That's my website. You can find me on Facebook. My own podcast is called the Think Happy Podcast. So pretty easy to find with Think Happy.
Awesome. Awesome. Really appreciate your time today and sharing those tips. That wraps up another episode of Empower Her Money. I am your host, Angela Duncan. And don't forget, not only listening to the podcast, but taking action and implementing the ideas every day is going to make huge results for you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.